All right, guys, we're recording here. This is case study 2 for Group 3. Drew Daniel, Angela Brooks, LaShonda May, and Philip Bayou. We have the case study 2 called We Don't Want the Devil Teaching Spelling. Very interesting read. And we have a lot of questions to go over, so I'm just going to jump right into them. We can do the same thing we've been doing where we just kind of all go round robin or jump in when you feel appropriate. So basically this one, was from the top down. You got your superintendent, assistant superintendent, 3 principals, teacher involved. So there was a lot going on there with the case. And the first question says, to what degree do issues of teacher autonomy and empowerment presented in this case typify those that are emerging with regard to site-based management? Whew.
Yeah.
I did. That was the last question I did, man. I skipped that one and went to all the other ones because it wasn't very much about the reading as much. But I mean, I guess I'll just start off and say, delegating power is a really important skill, and you will drown yourself really quickly as a principal, I would imagine, unless you can learn who you can trust and things like this. However, when managing a large, almost you can think of it as a corporation, educational corporation, you can really get yourself into trouble, as you can see in here, unless you have a good deal knowing what's going on. It's good to treat teachers as instructional designers and empower them to teach students as they see fit. But in my opinion, and I guess we'll talk about it a lot more later, there's a certain degree that you need to be involved in the situation. What did you guys write down for that one?
I'll go ahead, LaShonda.
No, you're fine, Angela. Go ahead, sweetie.
I had said basically the same thing. I felt like one of the things that you have to remember in this case study and all case studies is ultimately you want to empower your staff, you want to empower your teachers, but you are going to be held responsible either at the district level or at that school level for decisions made in your school. So you've got to at least be aware, and I think that was one of the issues here probably. You need to know what is going on and like you said, kind of know who you can trust and what kind of parameters to put around those situations.
And I would agree with what you just said, Angela. By all means, teacher empowerment, it is encouraged to the utmost, but at the same time, as the building administrator, to me, I feel like it is your job to be aware of what's going on in the building. Like I said, I know the meeting took place to purchase those materials. Were there any kind of minutes that were taken? Because I know typically where we're at, right, whenever we have any kind of meeting, whether it's a 5 or 50-minute meeting, minutes are to be taken and shared with the administration. And if there are any questions or concerns, the administration will either contact us directly or they will just add comments into the Google document. So it's like, well, empowerment is there, but at the same time, just be aware of what's going on in your building.
Yeah, and I agree. In order to have you always want your staff to be empowered, but you also at the same time have to have checks and balances. And with this case study, it looked like everybody was just kicking that can down the road until it was too late to do anything, to hit the papers before anybody had anything. And then the next thing you know, you got your superintendent.
And then fingers are flying. Well, whose fault is it?
Right.
So in the article, it was about, a gifted and talented program, and it seemed from reading it that the principal just laid all the responsibility in the hands of those teachers to make those decisions and actually, provide that order directly to the assistant superintendent, who of course just approved it, assuming that it was approved in the school. So it says evaluate the process for purchasing materials for the gifted and talented program in this school district. So what did you think, Philip? You can start off since you kind of had to go last time. It said evaluate the process for purchasing materials for that gifted and talented program.
Well, I mean, when it went all the way up to the superintendent, I thought it should have been probably at principal level or they have a staff member like a bookkeeper to actually see what they're actually purchasing. And
right.
That signed off. That should have been, I think that should have been in-house with inside the school of purchasing, because, like this article had said, his only responsibility was to approve it and make sure I think I guess his goal was to make sure everything was under in the budget. They didn't run over or go in the red. So I think it should have been in house.
And and I'll go next. Like I said, we don't know what their process was altogether. When it comes to purchasing any kind of materials, that protocol should be in place. Okay, whether it was purchased by the gifted and talented program or not. Was it looking just to serve that population? Could it be used to serve other populations? Also, what standards were to be covered with that? And I feel like if the administration hadn't been involved in that, which I don't know what that principle was like, you could have looked at it. If she would have looked at it, who's to say that she would not have been offended herself? I mean, who's to say? But apparently, going throughout this article, she didn't see anything wrong with that. Like you said, it needs to go through some kind of chain where it's not just the teachers and it goes straight to the assistant superintendent of whatever program it was. I think that person just signed off on a piece of paper saying, hey, here are some programs we would like for our school. The money's there. Let's just go ahead and purchase it.
I agree. As much as, and I've taught government, and so sometimes, as much as we don't like bureaucracy and the red tape and going through all those processes, there are reasons for them being there. And I think, Philip was talking about checks and balances a little bit earlier, and it definitely seems like a case of just not enough oversight on, a simple situation that could have been handled completely different. And then, take the spelling out of it for a second. Well, how many other programs might be going on exactly like this, but maybe not have the attention of the parents at this point? So, some sort of oversight, especially I think in the school, probably with the principal or a curriculum person within the school, whoever is supposed to look at those curriculum things.
I agree with what you guys said. I just disagree with it. I don't know if I'm too type A and too, overpowering personality, and this might have to change later, but I want to know every single purchase that's going to happen in the school if it's not related to supplies that are, like highlighters and pens. I don't want to know about that. But if it's based off of a instructional piece, I want to know that purchase that's being made and why, because you can get yourself into trouble if overspending, like you said, getting the red that way. And it just seems lazy to me to just put it all on the teachers or all on that AG program to then just submit it to the superintendent without giving you a heads up. It just seems kind of lazy personally, delegating that power out like that. So number 3 says, do you think that the principals acted responsibly in this case? And then we're supposed to evaluate their behaviors from the following perspectives: professional responsibility, moral and ethical leadership, and effective management. But basically, do you think they acted responsibly? And you guys can start off if you would like, anyone. LaShonda, would you like to go ahead? Do you think that the principals, because it was 3 involved eventually, right? The 3 principals eventually.
Right.
I would say no. Starting with the first principal who the parent went to, because the question was, she investigated, but she didn't actually look at the material. Like you said, she just asked the teacher, okay, what is this that you have? Teacher pretty much said, okay, it's very supportive. Our teachers are benefiting from it. Okay, the principal's like, okay, well, it must be an okay program. So me personally, I would want to lay eyes on it. I would want to do research on it myself. So I would say no. I wouldn't. I would have acted upon the parents' request and at least laid eyes on it or something.
I said the same thing. That was the very first comment that I made, LaShonda. I said, I think that somebody should have at least looked at the material, logged in and looked at it, checked it out to see what all this discussion was about. I also had, now this might just be where I'm at, but it also seemed like there was a delay of time. And I think in that delay of time, things tend to escalate a lot faster.
Like 3 days.
If it was a prompt response, I think it would have been better. But you're right. It was 2 days after the telephone call, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Ms. Baker's telephone call. And I feel like 2 days is a long time for people to get stirred up in their emotions. So I think sometimes if you just put your eyes on it, look at it. And I know people are busy. I'm not saying, I'm not unrealistic as far as principals go. But if you have a concern that's brought to your attention like that, I think a prompter response could sometimes handle things a little bit better. So I also had, I guess, like I said, a issue with the timing, not just with the principal, but even, wait a minute, is this question just the principal? Yeah, it is. Okay, never mind. I put timing for some other things in here as well, but I think that goes to that professional responsibility. That 2 days times was not, in my opinion, the most professional thing to have been done. And then, like you said, for the moral and ethical, I think you should have at least looked at it. Just look at it. Because even in this article, it doesn't even say, is it nobody looked at it other than the teachers, and they said it was okay. So.
Right. I think that, as the principal, they should be responsible for what really goes on in the building, and they should be aware of it. And that was the professional. Now, the moral and ethical portion of it, I mean, the simple fact that your parent is pretty much your customer because they're bringing that product, the student in. It seemed like the principals were a little bit dismissive of their concerns. The way they said that, it's okay, my teacher's got it, and instead of actually doing a thorough investigation. Or, they did, even when they consulted other principals and they were having the same problems, they still didn't do anything about it. So that really wasn't effective management at all.
Yeah, and I'll go back to that question. When it comes to that part, it wasn't effective management because I feel the three of them, being administrators and being leaders, they should have set the example. Okay, we're having so many parents come to us. I mean, it may not be a whole slew, but it's enough where it's raising the concern. It even got as far as getting an article in the paper to grab some attention. They all should have put their heads together and say, hey, what can we do about this? And I'm not saying that you're getting down and, you know what I'm saying, just to do what they want you to do, but apparently it's an issue. Who's to say that those numbers weren't going to grow even higher? I'm just being, I guess it's that type of program, something about witches or something. And they could have sent home a sheet of paper in the future. Okay, my child does not have permission to participate in this particular spelling program. So I believe it was poor management on all three of their ends.
Yeah, it was a slap in the face, I think, to the people who raise a concern not to handle it right away. And it doesn't have to be them. You can delegate the responsibility to look at that material, maybe to a counselor, an assistant principal, somebody like that that's not involved in the AG program, and then get to you later. And then you can say, tell the parents, look, we're going to review this right now, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. But, yeah, the 2 days was a little long. So the next one says, number 4, if you were Dr. Montgomery is the superintendent or the assistant superintendent? You guys help me out.
He is the superintendent, I think. Yes.
Yeah, he's the superintendent. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were the superintendent, Dr. Montgomery, who would you hold responsible for this situation? And I'll just go ahead and say, I think it's the principals. I think it's the 3 principals, because I think they're being lazy by not reviewing the purchases. And just by allowing teachers to make purchases doesn't necessarily empower them. And allowing them to design their instruction and come up with purchases can empower them, but not allowing them to submit the POs, the purchasing orders. I mean, that's just like a, clerical task that you should have some say in.
And I would say principal too, Drew, because I feel like the teachers are a reflection of how the school is run. And the principal is a reflection. Teacher and principal are a reflection of that school. So I would say, let me see, whom would you? Yeah, it would be the principal for the most part, because bottom line is you are the leader of that school itself. You need to know everything that's going on in that building, especially when it comes to the students.
Yeah, I agree. It was the principal's fault. I don't know if they thought they were micromanaging, but just the whole thing about, you don't have to, like you said before about empowerment, you don't have to, with purchasing and letting the teachers buy whatever, it's not really the empowerment portion of it. You still have to have oversight.
I kind of went similar. I said the principals clearly, but I did do just a little bit different. I was kind of under the impression that since maybe this was a district thing, that was district funds and not school funds. Right. So I went at it just a little bit differently on this question. I said, I still think ultimately the principal needs to know what curriculum is being taught in his building, and I think that's where he laid down on it. But I did say that maybe they need to revisit the district policies for district money, because if the district person, I guess it's the assistant superintendent or whatever, the Dr. Youngman is not going to actually look at the curriculum, then maybe he shouldn't be signing off that it should be bought. But somewhere in there, I guess that was my only little bit of different interpretation. I thought it might be actually district money and not local school money that was buying that material. And so I went at it at a little bit different angle.
No, that's a good point, Angela. That is a good point. Let's see. Number 5 says, assess the argument that the materials should not be removed because students are not required to use them. And it says, is that an adequate response and why? Should the materials be removed just because the students aren't allowed to use them? I mean, there's providing the materials in class. Everybody's enjoying them. It's kind of one of those things that, it's a slippery slope there. What do you guys think?
I put the biggest issue was, for me, this was a hard question to answer because nobody still has looked at the material. So it was just kind of, I can't say, it's kind of like LaShonda said, maybe a note saying it's optional and could kind of, go over that. But until they actually look at the material and decide as a school or site or district or whatever, is it actually appropriate or not? It's hard to say. But you're right. It's kind of a slippery slope because you don't want to say, oh, well, it's not, you're not forced to use it, but, so basically if you find it offensive, there could be an alternative. I get that, but maybe it is bad, maybe it's not, but I think that's still the question here. So that was hard for me to answer.
Philip, did you see that, is this, and LaShonda, are they using this in class? Or is it something that's sent at home?
It was sent home.
Yeah, it was sent home for homework. But what I looked at was where it says, should it be removed? I would say no, because I thought about, you may have books in the library about witches and whatever that selling curriculum was. If you have a child that you prefer not to check, they don't have to check those books out in the library. They have
Harry Potter,
other books that.
Sorry.
Say it again, Drew.
I just said Harry Potter, right? It's in every library.
That's what I'm saying. If you have that parent that says, okay, I don't want you checking out any witch, that's fine. You have other books to choose from. So to me, I'm hoping that this was not the only resource as far as spelling was concerned that they had, because you can leave it there for those students who are allowed to use it. And then you should have other curriculum and resources for those students that are not allowed to use that particular one. So I would say no, I wouldn't remove it, being that the fact that it's already been bought. So that was my answer.
I took it as assessing the argument, being the devil's advocate for the portion, being that this is raising a big problem and everybody is like being stubborn to dismiss the other parents for the problems. I'm thinking that this program costs a lot of money, so they don't want to seem like they're just wasted this money because maybe that superintendent was like, oh, you guys not even using this information. We're going to have to, limit your funds, So that's what I was thinking of that.
And the school board, who's, basically the watchdog, the educational watchdog for the community, they're making sure funds are used in the right way too. And so, that's perking their ears right up as well. Okay, number 6. To what extent do you think the nature of the community is a factor in the problem arising and the type of solution that should be pursued? Should it be, I'm assuming this might be a little bit more of a, what would you call it? I'm having a lapse in, a type of community that's, what was that?
Did you say affluent?
Well, I was going to say a more conservative. You helped me. I don't know how, but a more conservative community. I was assuming maybe it was one of those type of communities, and affluent, since they're very involved, right? And they're getting this money, and there's an AG program, and they're worried about the witchcraft. So, but everything goes back to, you don't have a leg to stand on if you didn't review the purchase. Like, it can really just solve everything. Because you can back it from the bottom up if you already checked out the purchase. But what did you guys think? Do you think you should let the community have an effect on the problem arising and the type of solution that should be pursued?
Yeah, I think that the community is going to it's going to be a factor any way. There's no stopping that, because I mean, just for example, when we in social studies we discuss Islam, we have so many objections that come through, so we have to send a letter now saying this is what we're going to cover. Plus, not only that, it's not like a choice; it's in the curriculum. So if it's not being in the curriculum, they're going to just say, you know.
But they're so sensitive to that. Yeah.
Right. So it's a double-edged sword with this.
Yeah, but when it comes to the school, the community is going to have to factor anyway, regardless of what kind of school it is. I looked at it as, I lost my train of thought. I looked at it as you can't please everybody, but the community is always going to have their factor when it comes to the school, whether they have a child there or not.
I kind of took the same road that Philip took and said you have to know the community you serve, regardless of this situation or any other situation. You need to know what their thoughts are so that you can kind of preempt that. And sometimes that note home goes a long way before you do something like that. So if there's no way that the community is not going to affect, and it should affect what we're doing in schools to certain degrees, because that is the people we're serving. So include them in the process sometimes, and know the community you serve. That doesn't mean that you always have to give in to them, but like I said, sometimes the upfront stuff will go a long way to whatever it is you're trying to achieve later.
Yeah, you said a double-edged sword. Censorship can be a double-edged sword, especially if you're allowing others to control what you're censoring in school. You got to keep in mind that, the First Amendment stuff, the obligations that you have, the integrity of the educational program there. And so if you're just pulling things right away, then that's a problem. But you can do things like what you mentioned and, give parents well, first of all, check out the material, but second of all, give parents the foresight to see what's coming and opt in or opt out. Okay, so number 7, do you agree with the superintendent's comment that if he were a principal, he would want to control the purchase of instructional materials in this school, and why or why not? I've already answered this question from previous discussions, so I'm just going to say absolutely yes, I agree with that, and that's the way I would handle every single bit of it.
Right, has to be in-house. Got to be.
I would say yes too. You are the principal of that school. There are students in that school. There are instructional materials. Because if you have a parent, it wouldn't look good on you as a principal if a parent comes to you and asks you about any type of instructional material and you have no idea what it is or what it looks like. So, yes.
I also said yes, and I do know that that's hard sometimes. Like I said, I'm not going to pretend like the principals at our high school or whatnot have read every book that they're reading in the English department, but you need to have some basic knowledge of what is being taught. If there is before you're buying and spending that sort of money on whatever the instructional supplies are.
I mean, even if you allow your department head, right, to overview the materials and then copy it on the email to the purchasing order person, then you're at least in the loop and you know that somebody else looked at it other than just a teacher.
Right.
Yep.
And I think I really would have something written down where if it's not an instructional material, like material supplies for the classroom, then I would want to have some say in it. But I mean, who knows? Maybe I know that everybody gets busy. Number 8 says, if you were Dr. Youngman, and this is the assistant superintendent, right, who made the order go through initially, what actions would you initiate to prevent problems like this from rising in the future?
I think I kind of answered this a little bit. I thought it was district funds at one point, so I do think there needs to be some sort of either principal approval or somebody, before he's signing off on it, he needs to, or have somebody in his office look at whatever is being purchased. I think they're just missing some steps there, some of those accountability things.
Chain of command, that's what I wrote down too, Angela.
Right, have somebody in that curriculum specialist category.
Yeah, and like you said, Phil, you said a curriculum specialist within the category. Also, if they do apply or request to purchase certain curriculum materials, what are the criteria for purchasing that material as well? But that goes back to the protocol and the process of making sure you have legitimate steps in place for purchasing instructional materials.
Setting those parameters before it even happens. Exactly.
So teacher empowerment is a big buzzword these days, and delegating power, everybody knows that. So do you think that most communities would support concepts of teacher empowerment, and especially in regards to making decisions about instruction and the selection of instructional materials, and why or why not? And I just think every situation is different and every community is different. I had a really hard time. I actually wrote, I can't answer this because of it's not specific enough. But I do think that teachers are regarded highly in most communities, and that you can definitely, I think that they would be backed by this. That's what I wrote down finally. Yeah. Thank you.
I would agree. I think that also, I think for the most part, communities do want to support the teacher. I don't think that most people want to burden teachers any more than they already are. But I do think that there are, especially groups of people sometimes that do like to nitpick. So you have to be careful about those sort of things. I just think if the teachers have guidelines, it will go much more smoothly. Not that there's no teacher's day whatsoever, but within certain criteria.
Yeah, and the response that I've had to number 9, I would say yes, they will support the concepts of teacher empowerment, because teachers are the one in the classroom.
Right.
Support their decisions. So I'd say that because not only are teachers the ones in the classroom, they're the ones that say, hey, okay, this is my instruction. These are the materials that I need, that would be the most supportive, not only in my classroom, well, that could possibly be shared throughout my grade level or any other grade level that can benefit from it.
But they will not back it if you start to get a bunch of witchcraft. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's what, I guess that's what the article's about, right, Philip?
Right. And I agree. As long as, teachers they're pretty much upstanding professionals in the community. And so I believe the communities will back them just because they have that rapport, that face-to-face or communication more than with just the principal or the superintendent that's making decisions as well.
But they might not start to back it in this community right here. Sounds like things are spiraling down. Number 10 says identify potential legal issues that could relate to this case. And I was just thinking that, I was thinking maybe because he didn't respond to people in a timely manner. Like those 2 days, that's kind of a big deal. And then I don't think did he tell the parents that he reviewed the material? I don't think he lied to the parents and said, he told them straight up that he didn't review the material. But I think you can get yourself into trouble by if there's some objectionable material in that game and you haven't reviewed it and it's been purchased for your school for that AG program, then I can see some potential legal problems. I'm not a lawyer and I hope to never get into any legal issues, but I can see some problems that would happen there.
Yeah, I think it was probably like religious issues, I would say, just due to the fact of witchcraft. And if they're still making them do it, then you're definitely going to have problems down the road because I won't say invasion of religion. I forgot the word for it, but it's pretty much you're stepping on their religious beliefs. And, they'll say something about it.
And I agree with both of you. I think it will be more so of a religious issue, beliefs, morals, for the most part. So there could be potential legal issues.
That's what I put. I put religion, First Amendment sort of thing.
Yep. So we have 10 minutes left and 3 questions, so we're right on track here. This is perfect. The number 11 says, so assume that, because it left you with a cliffhanger as to what they're going to do, but let's assume the principals do pull it and remove the sorcerer from the schools as the parents are demanding them to. What reaction would you anticipate from the teachers? And you all know what that reaction is going to be. I'll let somebody else start.
Yeah, I think it's, I guess, the way I see it, it's the way the principals, their approach of how they take it off. if they can explain to them why and the ramifications for keeping it there, and then have a solution, like another ultimate solution to the problem, then I think that the teachers will understand. But if they come off with it, yeah, we're just going to take it off and give them no reason, like they did with the parents, saying, you know, I trust this and that, because they pretty much had the backing all the way up until the superintendent got there. So if they can just come in and tell them the reason why and give a solution, and then, you know, I think it'll be okay.
How about you, Angela? I'm sorry. How about you, whoever, LaShonda or Angela?
Like you said, Bill, it'll look better if they had some kind of reasoning behind it in a positive way. Not saying, okay, take it off, we can't teach this anymore. Give the reasoning, but also have teachers, or you help the teachers, go find another, I guess, spelling program that would benefit the students that won't be offensive at all.
That's basically what I put. I put at this point, the teachers are not going to like it regardless. It's how are you going to soften the blow? You know, how are you going to get them to buy in and make them feel included in the process? But if you decide to go that route to remove the sorcerer from the schools, I don't think teachers are going to like it. And I do think that teachers are going to worry about, well, what the escalation of it. Well, what's next? You know, what's coming next? If we're taking this out, then if somebody starts complaining about this, I think that's what teachers tend to do. So I think it's how are you going to soften the blow and make it to where this is, whatever solution you come to needs to be encompassing enough where you're going to solve those hopefully future potential problems as well.
I think if the executive decision is made to just pull that sorcerer, then teachers are going to be mad, and I think that they should be mad because it's the fault of the principals for not having policies and transparency in place from the beginning. And I think that's exactly what you said, Angela, pretty much, that it would, you know, trickle down. What's the trickle down effect? But I would say, I think the teachers are going to say, I think he's going to get a lot of emails. Why are you allowing the parents to dictate what we're doing now when that hasn't been a policy in place from here on down? And now a couple people complain and you're just trying to please everybody. I mean, I could just see it would happen. Number 12 says, assess the teacher's decision-making on instructional materials from 3 perspectives: the relevance of the roles, the decisions being made, the knowledge base to make such decisions, and the authority to make such decisions. I'm going to skip that one and go to number 13 for a minute just to make sure we have enough time, because that's a huge problem. It's like basically 4 questions in one. So I'm going to go down to number 13 and now start it off. Number 13 says, assume that the administrators decided to support Miss Oberfield and leave sorcerer in the schools. What reaction would you anticipate from the school board? And I kind of already mentioned that a school board's an educational watchdog for the community. They're looking at the dollars, they're looking at the policy and everything like that. But I think that they would, you know, back the parents if this became a big enough distraction. I think that they're going to back the parents who didn't get a prompt response and didn't get, you know, the principals to look into the situation appropriately. And I think that could be a problem. But I am actually very confused about a school board. I don't know what a school, who makes up a school board? Is it just teachers? Is it a volunteer? I'm sorry.
They're elected.
Elected.
Yeah. They're elected. That's what I put. It depends on, is it an election year? Because I think, especially if there's already those editorials and you've got that many parents, you know, upset about it, that's the kind of stuff that just is going to spiral out of control and become somebody's political campaign slogan for the year or something. So I think you have to be careful with that. I think that I do think for the most part the school board is probably going to support those upset parents, especially since it was handled so poorly.
Yeah, and that can go back to who you have to look at. Who is it that's serving on the school board? Also, it's a protocol that the school board has to follow when issues like this arise. So, I mean, I looked at it that way as well. So, but like you said, 9 times out of 10, they're going to support the parents when it comes to something like that, because it's going to come back to what steps did your school take to try to address the issue that was presented before you. And if they see that no steps were taken or the effort was not made to address the issue, they're going to support the parents 9 times out of 10.
Because at this point, I don't think the school has much of a leg to stand on.
Yeah, I agree. There was no like set steps. They're gonna call it. They're gonna call on it.
All right, so we got time to go back to this other one, and it's a real doozy, this number 12. So it says, assessing the teacher's decision-making on instructional materials from 3 perspectives. And the first one is the relevance of roles to decisions being made. I think that it would not hurt teachers' feelings if they can't just make purchase orders directly for their curriculum. I think that they should be able to request it. But I don't think that it would make anybody mad if that gets shot down. I think it goes to what we talk about, a chain of command. Like, I think if you can empower teachers to, come up with something based off of a standard that it's related to, and then maybe submit it to a higher up, then I think that empowers teachers just fine. So that's the roles part of it. And then it says something about based off of their knowledge base. I think that, all teachers should have the decent knowledge base to be empowered as teachers that know what they're teaching. And then finally, the authority to make the decision. So I think we kind of already answered all these questions when we talk about the chain of command and who that goes to and what that looks like. But would you guys like to add in anything or any final thoughts regarding number 12 or the article in a whole? Because we just have 2 minutes left.
I think you're pretty much right. I think that the teachers are relevant in making those decisions, but again, the authority, I think, is what we as a group sounds like we struggle with, that maybe it doesn't just go straight from them. Clearly, they are going to know their content more than other people, and so you should, have say in the matter, but maybe not just a direct, oh, we want it, we're going to buy it type thing.
I think it was not just so much that their knowledge of the decisions in making it. It was just the lack of sensitivity towards the community with what they were doing, of actually what it was that was being bought. So if it wasn't dealing with sorcery and witchcraft, they end up picking that program because it was successful. So if you can find something else that without that, then, because they were right on point. If it's successful, let's go ahead and get it. So I don't think it was about their knowledge.
You're right. So look, man, what if they came back with data and charts? Like, what if they reviewed it and they were like, yeah, and look, in this state they're using it, and it has like a 15% more, boost in literacy. So if they came back with something like that and it was like concrete data, that would be huge.
Yeah, true.
That's what I said too. If they have the data to support it, yes, we're all for teachers making the decisions within the school along with the administration. If they have the data to support it, but at the same time, it still needs to be looked at by administration and whoever is over the curriculum and instruction, especially with an issue like this.
Right. All right, well, good job, guys. I think we covered it all, so I'm going to stop recording here, and then we can powwow for a minute about that curriculum interview. But thank you, Dr. Stebbin. So that was our last article and case study. So.